Fred and Keith here with Get the Most Out of Your Workout. Today we're talking about wrist pain. A lot of CrossFitters get wrist pain as they put that bar into the rack position and that wrist is in full extension with weight at the end of that barbell. So how to prevent wrist pain? Here's our discussion today. We're going to talk about technique to begin with. Keith's going to position the bar, and as he comes up into that front rack position, we want to get those elbows out so that we have full lat mobility. Part of wrist pain happens when the arm is not in proper position because of tight lats. So all of our blogs previously on lat mobility is actually going to help your wrist pain. So we want to get those arms up so that you don't need your wrist to support that bar. As Keith demonstrates here, the bar should rest in that front rack position without needing that wrist to take a lot of that weight. Unfortunately, we see a different position a lot of times. We see people not get these elbows up and they're holding that bar then with their wrist. That's a lot of stress. So in order to protect the wrist, we've got to have good shoulder mobility. Okay, so technique is an important part of protecting those wrists. But let's talk a little bit about the wrist just from a standpoint of balance, because the first thing we got to look at is technique. The second thing we got to look at is how balanced is your wrist between flexors and extenders. Think of the biceps and the triceps. The elbow and the wrist is just an extension. The elbow is an extension of the wrist. So we can think of bis and tris. In CrossFit, you're doing a lot of extension work with overhead presses. You're getting those elbows extended. So you think of the exercises that fire flexion. Flexion, your sumo deadlift high pulls, your pull-ups, things that are activating flexion mechanics will help take stress off the wrist. In addition, we want to stretch to get that balance, because in that position, whether it's a snatch or a clean position, we've got to take the wrist and get it in a different position to help balance that. So a few stretches. Here's the few stretches for the week to take into account. Keith is putting that wrist in extension to stretch all these flexor muscles. There's a bunch of flexor muscles here, so we got to vary this stretch by pulling 2 fingers, pulling the outside fingers, pulling just 1 finger. Play with it, see what feels good, but you're just pulling a finger in a stretch position to get a good stretch through the flexors. You then reverse that, going into flexion of the wrist so that you stretch the extensor muscles. Same idea here. Get a good stretch into that. You might deviate your wrist side to side a little bit to get the outside and get the inside. So stretching the mobility side of what we want to do, but this is get the most out of your workout, so we now have to combine that with strengthening. So we're going to rig these PVC pipes with stretch bands up down at the box. We're going to tie a 5-pound plate to it, and then Keith is just going to start rolling that plate up. That's going to be working the strength of these muscles that supports that wrist. Then he's going to let her come down, and when you come down, make it come down real slow. That's the eccentric control of those muscles lengthening. Next time up, we're going to flip the palms up the other side. So he was pronated, now he's going to be supinated. And as he rolls that up, now we're working these flexors in a different position. That's how you strengthen your wrist. And this wrist ultimately needs to be balanced. You need to have the mobility of your wrist, but then you got to have stability to support that, so that when you get in that front rack position, as you start lifting weight over your head, your wrists are going to be better supported. Let's get the most out of your workout. Give these exercises a try, and we'll see how it goes. Thanks for watching.